All right.
Here we go.
Here we go. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody. And Lenny, should we disclose that for us it's actually Thursday?
We should. It is next week is the 30th anniversary of my wife not killing me. So in reward for that, we are taking a long weekend, which rarely happens, but we're doing it. So it's my fault that we're not live because
wedding anniversaries are a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you guys probably get the sense that I'm a lot to take. So truly, truly, when I say my should be sainted wife and 30th anniversary, her not killing me, because it's been a near thing a few times. It is worth celebrating. So,
well, happy anniversary, first of all. Do you know this weekend is also our head of marketing's anniversary? So shout out to Jasmine and her husband as well. So yeah, it's a special weekend apparently.
Very cool.
Something has been in the air this weekend in the past. So
spring.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, happy anniversary. Congratulations. So we're pre-recording on Thursday. So it is officially April 10th. Yes. But for you, it's officially April 11th. So I hope you all have good weekends, but let's get into it, Lenny, because I think this Cint story, just shows it's another one of those signals, right? So why don't you tell everybody what's going on with Cint?
Yeah, no, Cint raised 60 million US. We'll 596 in their local currency. So, but to enhance our exchange platform and to invest in media measurement and fraud prevention. The media measurement component, I think, is what really stands out there for me as they're building products off of their access to sample themselves. And that just makes a lot of sense as panel companies continue to look for new ways to monetize their core asset, which is connection to consumers. And building data products. That media measurement is a data product. Off of that. So, and
surprise, surprise, there's some AI power behind this new functionality also. So, once again, AI is, or we should say, investors are confident in AI power. So
they are confident in AI power and the need to connect with people for data to feed the AI, right? So it's kind of both of those components. So so that's interesting. Hats off. Rising tide floats all boats. So that sends a strong signal to everybody playing in the human data accessibility market, I guess. Trying to create a new term that absolutely includes panels. Or exchanges, since it's not really a panel, they're the exchange for other people's panels and access to audiences. So hats off to them. Strong signal. A lot of nervousness in the past week or so. So it's good to have signals that say, "Oh, the sky's not falling. We're good.
We're good. We're good." So another signal of growth is a new office for our friends at Neurons. So Neurons opens its first office in the US in Austin, which is a great hub for kind of innovation. It's like, as soon as I read this, I was a little nostalgic. I was like, oh, Austin, we used to do our IIX there, and now we're gone. So maybe someday we'll be back. But either way, expanding their footprint, always a good indicator, kind of demand for that neuroscience-based testing and, and the tools that they bring. A U.S. office just means further growth. So another indicator.
Absolutely. Private equity backed company. Thomas Ramsey and his whole team been growing for years, right? And it's great to see now scalability happening there. And we say that they were kind of AI before AI was cool. One of their flagship products early on was the visual intensity modeling that was effectively driven by maybe not LLMs, but certainly neural nets and kind of the earlier versions of AI. So good to see growth in anything related to non-conscious measurement. Because I think that's like behavioral data that's increasingly becoming important in understanding consumers holistically, utilizing other tools.
Yeah. Speaking of, so the trifecta of growth indicators, this next
is
story.
Interesting. I thought this was pretty cool.
I know, it's so cool. So NIQ acquiring sensory modeling firm Gastrograph AI. Mouthful. It's a mouthful. We'll give them a break for that. But so this is about predictive insights for CPG brands through flavor, aroma, and texture analysis. So here we go again, right? This ability that Nielsen IQ has kind of now kind of leaned in on to model sensory experiences.
Yep.
Using AI, which was something that you and I were like, well,
right. Sensory safe. That can't be. People still got to touch it and smell it.
Fine. Everything's fine. Do they? And I think that's the reality. Anyway, so sorry, all you sensory researchers, it is time for you to get up to speed on what these offerings are and to see how AI is being integrated in the work that your kind of competitive set is doing, and seeing what you need to also be developing, to stay relevant in that space, because this moved faster. I mean, it was just a few weeks ago we were talking about just smell, wasn't it? Like we were talking about being able to simulate smell through computers and all of that stuff. So
although I think I think all of that is true. I think to be somewhat fair, I think this is a very sophisticated normative database that creates predictive models. NIQ or Gastrograph, correct me if I'm wrong, that was my takeaway, but still it's kind of the version of synthetic sample from that standpoint, right? Of being able to predict off of some testing measures of what, what the reaction may be overall. Would it replace the need for sensory testing? I would guess not yet, emphasis on yet, but would it speed up the process in early phase testing and iteration? Hell yeah.
And I mean, even the scalability, if you build profiles for people that have sensory preferences, right? Synthetic responded at 12579 or whatever, they may know they have a preference for sweet over savory. If it's food related, they don't like sticky, and all of these sort of sensory attributes. Build a sensory profile of preferences, and then start to predict, here's this new product. How will a data set respond to it? Well, guess what? It's gonna point you in the direction of people that you could segment to target. Like you have to start, I think, when you're trying to wrangle how this all works, start it with a very basic kind of concept, and then say, okay, maybe if we expand this out, we can see how it can grow. So,
and how soon before we get into customization, right? I mean, let's say what eventually we will get to kind of the 3D printing of food. Well, I mean, we already do. It's just not scalable, and I don't know that I'd want to do it yet. But still, to have that custom based upon your profile, to your point, be able to customize that. This person likes sweet and savory. Here's the input off of these type of databases that drive that. It's
and the beauty industry. Again, I had this great podcast episode with the woman from Estee Lauder. The beauty industry has been doing sort of augmented reality sensory testing for a while. Like you can get in there and you can do get in there, all of that. So they've kind of gotten to some of this space already. So they might be ones to study up on if you really want to see how it's all coming together. Very interesting. Yeah. At one point in our lifetimes, did we think that we'd have, the impossible foods, and genetically created meat? This is not that far from that. If we can already create those foods that are not actually, meat, but a synthetic meat,
Think about the replicator from Star Trek, right? We've had that conversation for that Star Trek future. It goes back to what the thing we talked about a few weeks ago. I forget the name of the company now, but it was at the molecular level, and that's fundamentally what we're talking about with sensory. It is molecules. Is it a reach to think that one day we will be able to, like 3D printing at the molecular level, to combine things to create that? No, I suspect that's already being done. I mean, hell, if we can de-extinct the dire wolf, which, by the way, I know that wasn't on the agenda, but we should throw it out there. Oh, holy crap. We have dire wolves again. I don't know. People get the wrong message from movies like Jurassic Park. I think it wasn't supposed to be inspiration, but anyway. But we're
as long as we just keep it at wolves, keep it at wolves. They serve a place.
We're doing mammoths too, so we'll see. But I just hope they haven't got a T-Rex somewhere out there. But anyway, point is, we talk about AI and all those technologies, but other technologies, more kind of fundamental brick and mortar making stuff.
Yeah.
Continue apace as well, and this would be an example of how we may see that, which ultimately gets to the nirvana of ultimate personalization. So we think that we're not going to see in our lifetime a device in our home that allows us to create something custom based to our tastes, off of raw ingredients. I think that's a mistake to assume that we're not going to see that. I think we will probably see it faster than we even think. And this is an example that help drive it. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Geek button. You push my geek button on this one.
Well, it's all right. It's all right. It's very omnipresent. So
I'm just a big geek button.
Easy to do.
Even get close to it.
Let's talk about some product launches. All right. Because this is where it's like, here we have a lot again, to go through. But I love this. I just love the name of Ipsos Facto because it's I'm like very clever, well done. So Ipsos unveiled Ipsos Facto, which is internal AI operating system built for and by researchers, now adopted by over 90% of employees across 86 countries. So enterprise-wide AI integration. We have, and Carly can share the link, kind of this other story about I think it's much further down, but about the Shopify memo about kind of enterprise-wide integration of AI technology. And I think that's just going to become more and more a thing as everybody has finally said, uncle, uncle, we got to do this. So
well, I did it earlier today. I did a webinar with Ipsos and with Remesh, and we touched on this idea of the complexities of. So I was just drawing out AI. Well, actually, there's 100 different components that fit into this. So it is not you just we're now all on Microsoft Office. Right? It's not as simple as that for an organization of the scale and scope of an Ipsos that has, a bajillion different vendors and, countries, et cetera, et cetera. So first, hats off. David Zotter, the CTO, talked about this. Hats off to David for spearheading, because I'm sure it was a monumental task from an adoption standpoint. But technologically, it'll be interesting to see, because they only did it to increase efficiency in process, right? So it gives them advantages internally in terms of speed and cost efficiencies. So big example, guys.
And can I just sidebar real quick also?
Yes.
It just happened 28 minutes ago, so it's not something that I had digested, and I haven't read the article yet. But heads up, Lenny. Shout out to Will Leach. He posted an article on LinkedIn, and Carly, I'll get you this link, but he had shouted out to us, Lenny, where he said, I listened to an episode on The Exchange with Lenny Murphy and Karen Lynch a few weeks ago, and I can't get this idea for AI for efficiency versus AI for effectiveness. And he says, I'll vote for effectiveness all day long. And I thought, without even reading this article that Will wrote, and it's fantastic, it's the concept of, now that's interesting, because we do talk about efficiency all the time.
Right.
And
but how does it make it better?
how to make it better. Let's focus. Let's stop thinking about the next evolution of our brains and our usage is, okay, we're so excited about the efficiency. Let's get to effectiveness. And I just love that Will called that out, and it didn't make it into any brief because I had just seen it and haven't read it yet.
Thank you. Well, that's a great point. I mean, let's, even as we go through these other product launches, let's keep that in mind, right? The efficiency is important for speed and cost, competitiveness.
Yeah,
absolutely. But if we look at the cheaper, faster, better, that's the effectiveness piece. And better, we know this from grit. Better always wins. It can't just be better and be really damn expensive and slow. I mean, sometimes that works, but in most cases, it does have to be some combination of all three. But we can't. The effectiveness component, the impact, does need to be factored in. And especially in economic uncertainty or highly fragmented competitive landscapes, that's that's where we are. So as solutions are being rolled out, I think we're way past you get to save 10 minutes. That's not the piece anymore. So it's creating more value that answers the business question in a better way. So thank you, Will, for highlighting that.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. I mean, for those of you who are like, oh shit, I'm still focused on the efficiency.
Right. I'm still focused on what do I do?
Like, let's say this is a yes and it's efficient and it's effective. Because I still like the idea of kind of saving time because we're also time crunched.
Sure.
And that's one use case for it. But when it comes to research applications and and your business use cases, I'm not talking about you as a professional. We're talking about the work your teams are doing in insights. That's where effectiveness has to shine over us just doing our work. There's a difference.
Absolutely. So, well, that's probably a good segue. Let's talk about the Rival Tech. Launched their multi-agent AI framework to power every stage of the research process. And it's pretty cool. It's a pilot. So you can sign on. You don't have to, they're not forced it down your throat. You can adopt which of these pieces, and there's a vision they have.
Yeah.
I would say that it is right at the moment, it is still an effectiveness focus on integrating and creating more efficiencies across their tool set. It's hugely important, right? Still important. But if you get into the nitty gritty from that effectiveness in this case around unstructured data, that does translate pretty quickly into from efficiency to effectiveness, right? It's easy to see. Sometimes the lines blur here. I think this is an example of that. And this, and we've been talking for a while about the agentic component. Now, we're seeing these frameworks of technology providers like Rival rolling out these agentic systems to help, streamline and make it more impactful for the users.
Yeah. And I think, and I could be wrong in my recall, but when we were talking about kind of like personalization, I think there's also some kind of human user empowerment that happens when you have this sort of multi-agent framework where the user can decide, which of these workflows, matters to me for this moment, for this project, for these objectives, whatever. So I think that when you have that kind of modular approach that they're building in there, it's not underscoring the human's need to use these, these tools.
Yes, just having the whole set of tools that are available as you go. The Swiss Army knife, if you will.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Stuff.
AMC Global launched Verified Views, ratings and reviews solution from real buyers. So it, integrating traditional research now with ratings and reviews. So think about that from attitude and usage study to easily combine those of here's a survey, but then here's what are people saying online.
And I think they have a verification tool in there for verified purchasers, so it's helping trust a little bit more what you're seeing. I think that there's something about real users versus people who are, you know, gaming the system or working the system, or, you know, I think there's something to be said for users who are like, I'll try this product and then share a review. They're using it. They may be giving honest feedback, but that's not, they necessarily weren't a user first, you know? So anyway, verified views is working towards this trust that we need, which is, you know, has been shaky for a while. So
absolutely. So cool stuff for them. Circana, you know, formerly IRI and, you know, and MPD, the introduced Liquid Mix, self-service platform enabling marketers to drive rapid AI-powered marketing mix insights. So I think another example of they got a buttload of data, right? That's what they are. I mean, I think about IRI and MPD, they are data companies, always have been. And now they're given a new solution to be able to do that with a defined business issue. So taking the data, using, you know, an AI solution, probably a series of prompts, and, you know, they've gone through, focus on marketing mix.
I think one of the ideas here is that self-service nature of it leads to faster. So, you know, always goes back to the trifecta. Somebody asked me recently, like, is that trifecta still in place? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no pick two. No,
it's just, no, there's still anywhere.
Right. That should point out too, that's interesting about that is like the kind of like NIQ. I mean, the focus of those companies really is they have purchase data, right? They are understanding what's happening at the store level often, as well as overall trends and categories, et cetera, et cetera. So to take purchase data and now combine that to get a marketing mix and to look at, you're getting an attribution, right? That connective tissue of, oh, I spent money on this and I saw this lift in product purchasing at this store. So how do I optimize it? Really, you know, kind of nitty gritty meat potato stuff on where research shows its value.
So speaking of, I love our natural segues when they come up. Speaking of where you see
after you structured it that way.
No, I know. On some level I did, but also when the conversation just feels anyway, enough. I just feel like that's such an important point because we don't always look at the value of insights in all areas of the supply chain. So that's the aha that I had. So we're talking about NIQ again. They debuted GFK Neuron supply chain, AI-enabled platform for kind of always on global distributor sales data for techs and durables. And I think that we don't often talk about kind of the insights that far into a supply chain and in the distribution networks, kind of at the manufacturing level. I think that's all really interesting, and it's going to help with insights for supply chain management, which is not necessarily in the insights space. However, insights professionals in many organizations are going to be, especially in sort of tech and durable, are going to be accountable to stakeholders who are doing supply chain management. It all makes perfect sense. I just love that we just got to some depth.
Well, forecasting is absolutely, you know, demand forecasting is something that firmly sits in the insights organization. And, you know, you think about so in this current era of changing dynamics of global supply chains manufacturing, hugely important, right? Companies are resetting their supply chains. But even about 2020, this time 5 years ago, right? The where's the toilet paper? You know, I mean, so the ability to predict and understand the impact of the flows of those things that enable products to be made and delivered to the store, to the shelf for people to buy.
Even down at the grocery level. So I was on the phone with a friend of mine who is involved in research at Kroger's e-commerce department. And, you know, she was saying, like, you know, perception of where strawberries come from is fascinating, because, by the way, they don't all year long in the US, they don't all year long come from, California. They don't grow there all year long. So, they are constantly navigating, where do those strawberries come from? And when there are changes and disruptions to the global economy, even your strawberries are in question here. Like, where are we getting those from? How are we going to be able to get them from somewhere? It's not just eggs.
Right. Not the thing.
Strawberries too.
Right.
I do talk a lot about eggs. We talk about avocados maybe, but when she used the strawberry example, I was like, we can't emphasize enough. It's everything that we consume, whether it's a food or a beverage or a prepared meal or a phone like this. It's all really interesting, and Insights is doing critical work right now. So
absolutely.
Way to go, Insights professionals.
Way to go Insights. Yes. No, I agree. And because that always felt like the business intelligence kind of thing like that way. But to effectively get to demand forecasting and, and understand path to purchase, all unexpected.
Yeah. All right. So, speaking of shopping behaviors, we kind of touched on the Shopify thing. So, we can always come back to that at the end, because there's even more. But let's talk about this Drum article that you found, because this was interesting. Marketers adapting to the future of AI agents, of course, but agents in this context making consumer purchase decisions. Mm-hmm. And we've touched on this before. So I really like the idea that now this is like the call to action for marketers and then Insights professionals who are in service to marketers to really rethink how they are influencing consumer decision making when some of these decisions are happening machine to machine or agent to agent or AI to AI. Like, that is a quandary for marketers that more people need to be talking about. And this sort of steps outside of Insights just a little bit. And yet Insights is going to inform, because the Insights professionals really need to be ahead of consumer behavior on this one.
Right. Well, and think that it does open up interesting, components of if the agent is making the shopping decisions and you're doing an attitude and usage study. Do you talk to the person or do you talk to the agent? Right. Yeah. Think about the screening question. Who is are you the primary shopper in your home?
Right.
So
interesting.
Well, no, actually, my agent is the primary shopper. Potentially. So it brings up just interesting questions on that whole process. What does the path to purchase look like when it's agent to agent? Right. The decision-making criteria. So many different things that just the world of buying is changing.
Yeah, it really is. I just, as you were talking, I was thinking for a minute about, am I using any agents in my purchase behaviors? And I'm doing some integration, some automations. If I look at a recipe in the New York Times cooking app, for example, I can send it right over to Instacart, and the next thing you know, my cart is populated. So, there is a world where I can just look at a recipe and say, yes, I want to buy all these things, and that can all happen for me. The next thing you know, a bag shows up in my house, and it's just based on me reading a recipe. So I look forward to that evolution, by the way. Not afraid of that one, excited about that one. Anyway, but you think about like Amazon. I don't know if anybody ever subscribes to anything. Like, I have my dog's supplements coming regularly. Like, I'm like, make it a no-brainer. The packaging changed recently, and I was a little put off by it. I was like, what happened? Like, did what changed? Did it make a decision for me? I had this moment of disconnect with the changed packaging. Now, it was still the same product, but the packaging changed, Anyway, I don't know that I would have bought them with this new package. I might have had pause if I saw the new package design. I might have wondered more, but it just showed up in my house. So I didn't have to react to a package design change. They just showed up. So I had to then suddenly trust the efficacy was unchanged, which is one of those things for package design changes, right? Will this affect consumers' perception of this product if we change the package? That whole decision I didn't have to make, because Amazon just did it for me.
And in that world, does packaging even matter?
Does packaging even matter?
I mean, fundamentally, if the visual appeal is not because that is fun, that is what packaging is optimized for, not just, but that's a major piece of it. But if it's really about I want a product that has these ingredients or doesn't have these ingredients and has this cost point, and it's much more quantitative, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that do?
Yeah.
Weird world.
So these two articles, I think, Carly, you can share them in tandem. There's two articles. One is a Pew survey that was in Sherwood News, and one of them is an article that was in I think it's every.to. Two different articles, both talking about this concept, though, about Americans in particular, and how far along regular mainstream Americans are on the adoption curve. So, there's a big difference between the audience that we're talking to, which is this, kind of professional audience, kind of insights professionals in particular. We have a fairly tech forward audience. So there's a difference between those individuals and the mainstream consumer who is starting to use AI things, AI platforms, generative AI. It's still pretty small. Yeah. So you have the good news is, if you're on the brand side and you are selling to consumers, if you have any kind of DTC product or if you are out there in the, e-commerce or retail sites, you have some time to understand your consumers, because they are not as far along as the curve as professionals, are. So these two articles kind of give you maybe manage your expectations a little bit, level set where you are with them, but know that, as we know about adoption, look how quickly adoption happened in the work world. I don't know how slow it's going to be in the consumers' lives, but two good reads. Yeah,
absolutely. Two good reads. And I think that's actually a really important differentiation to make, right? Because if we talked about already, efficiency and impact, that's an easy translation to think about in your workflow, right? So no wonder we would see have seen the adoption in work. But I don't necessarily think about that in my daily life, to drive most of my decision making. I think about easy. Kind of system 1, system 2 type of thing. Easy familiarity. Those type of things. So I think that was important research to come out. We may not be there yet with the consumer focused AI apps. There's probably going to be a little bit of a trend line there before we need to focus. So the focus on business applications of AI technology is probably the right play for the moment, because consumer adoption is not quite there yet. I actually not. It's pretty damn far away based on these numbers. So
Although I think I've shared, if you think about Gen Z, they're the ones to watch, because they are now being exposed to this during their schooling years. My daughter, she's already switched to Ask ChatGPT. She's like, every time a question comes up, she's like, just ask ChatGPT. Like, it is a very easy source of intel for her. She's the one who was doing a lot of her research on TikTok. So 21 years old, and she's switching. So let's pay attention to Gen Z's adoption specifically, because that may look different from everybody else, and we may need to be ahead of that curve.
Right. And Gen Alpha, there are indications Gen Alpha is actually
game changing.
The Gen Alpha is rejecting it.
Interesting.
So the Gen Alpha is where we're seeing the flip phone is fine. Now, still early, small populations, but we are adapting generationally on technology usage, and those things can change by generation. So
cool to talk
we want to wrap up with these last
it's just really just one last article, and this one is a good read, so it's really just recommended reading. We don't even really have to talk too much about it. I don't know if you looked at it, but there's an article that was shared with me in Harvard.
Shared prolifically.
Yeah, it was really, but it's a good article. So this Harvard Business Review article, Carly was shared the link, talking about how generative AI is revolutionizing market research. It's not wrong. It is, generative AI is changing things completely, and we all know that. But this is really an interesting framework for kind of how Gen AI is going to kind of expand within our function. It's, talking about optimizing functions, and how it's going to be kind of shaping decision making in the future. It's just a really interesting read. So it's lengthy. Check it out. And, for me personally, shout out to Jeff Weiner from Evidenza, because he's the one who shared it with me, and he's, his company's in the article. So of course he's, excited to have gotten such good press, but it's also a solid read. So,
yeah,
really a lot. I have it pulled up here. One line is, the use of digital twins in marketing is mushrooming. And I'm like, oh, I like that sentence. Mushrooming it's a good way to say that. And I would say, yes, that is true.
Well, I mean, there's a cynical, and so what? It's, growing in the dark and fed with crap. I mean, there's
I don't know, but I think it's growing, and I think if it doesn't have checks and balances, it can grow. It can grow in the wrong direction. However, however, there's a whole subculture of people who are really into mushrooms right now, right?
True.
So anyway, that's like, he's probably like, or everybody's probably like, really, that's the line she pulls out. It's just that on my screen.
With Lenny's sense of humor, you get him an opening talk about
exactly.
I'll say, if you're a regular listener, there's nothing in there that will surprise you, but the depth that they go into, that it's very wonky. And it's great if you think, oh, this is Lenny and Karen echo chamber, right? That's what I love to see. Like, okay, no, this is a big industry. Other people are paying attention to it, and they're talking about this, and they're using different data sources and different perspectives to arrive to the same conclusions, but with a different level of authority, maybe than you and I have. So
here's what's interesting. What I love about that is also, I just scrolled to the very bottom of it, and Andrew Cannon from Outset AI, who's one of our partners in a lot of content, kind of wraps it up, and it says, with that in mind, we'd like to conclude on an optimistic note. It says, if Gen AI can talk to thousands of people around the world in hundreds of languages every hour, it can instantly draw all sorts of unique, high-fidelity insights from the data those conversations generate. Then our understanding of one another should deepen. And I'm like, nice. That's great. Yes, really poetic and beautiful. So nice placement. Nice placement, Outset AI as well. Cool stuff. Anyway,
and that's fundamentally a human component. So, All right. What else? Anything else?
What else? Have a great weekend, everybody. I think that's what else.
That's right. So we'll be back live again next Friday, Good Friday.
Good Friday, yes.
Yes. And
we'll take it from there. So we'll see you all in a week, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Take care.